Can both of you introduce yourselves individually? Tell me a little bit about yourselves and tell me about the book, Confessions of a Prison Cook, what it's all about, and what the book means to both of you.
Okay. My name is Phillip Longo. Before becoming a chef at prison, I was a banker. I built houses with my brothers, and I had a billiard club in New York. Then I got into trouble and went to jail.
Okay, and my name is Erika Somerfeld. I'm a publicist in Los Angeles and a magazine writer and blogger. And as I got to know Phil and hear his wild and crazy story, I decided in 2012 to start writing our book about his stories and about historical food and crime. And this is our book, Confessions of a Prison Cook, A Fusion of Food and Crime.
How did you two meet? Did you meet him like straight out of prison?
No, we met in a dog park after I got out of prison. And as we got friendlier, I was telling her about my background. And when she heard about my background, she said, well, those are interesting stories.
Well, he would tell me crazy stories about one-legged co-cooks where they take off his leg and stuff it with vegetables. You might have read that in the book under in our one of the chapters. And stories about his mom being attacked by the prison dogs after smuggling lasagna in her girdle. And I'm thinking, I'm a writer, so my brain is, going there. And I just thought, somebody's got to write this down. This is crazy. And then Phil's a really good cook. So we decided, just kind of tongue in cheek for fun, to follow each of the stories with a recipe that is kind of just a tongue in cheek title. To go with the story. So we make the book easy to read, fun. It's in small, no pun intended, digestible chapters. And, but yeah, it was a story I felt that had to be read. And plus, true crime and food are like two of the biggest subjects in media. So, yeah.
Right. Definitely, especially Italian food and true crime at that. Phil, can you give me just a brief little history about yourself pre-prison? What were you, committing, criminal activity at an early age, or was that later on in life, up until you did go to prison, or was that even your first stint in prison?
No, I was relatively a good boy until I got to prison, where I became a cop, obviously the chef, but I had been in banking and building, and we had a club in New York, and that's where the trouble started.
And just a little bit about the case that did land you in prison. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it had nothing to do with food, but a friend of mine had been arrested, and he was out working for the government and dragged me in.
So would that just be conspiracy then? Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
First time nonviolent offender. So, that's why our book doesn't take place with, all of the stereotypical stuff about prison. He made a boo-boo in the 90s. He paid for it. And, we're not a typical prison tale of like scary max security and that type of thing.
Right. Phil wasn't shanking guys left and right over a bottle of pasta or...
Just salt and pepper. That's all he was really shaking. But, I just want to draw a reference that the book opens with Phil's childhood and with the crime and what happened. And, it's a funny story because he used to run this, he was 19 years old, and he used to run this poker game above a movie theater. And, even then they had food that they were training around, for poker. And then, years later, as we talk about in the book, a handful of Cheetos, which is the big poker story. Same thing. Here he is years later trading grape soda and Beano and Cheetos at a poker game. So, that maybe that was his story to come, because food always seemed to be intertwined. And didn't you take home people's groceries for a quarter?
At one time when I lived in Brooklyn, we used to take our wagon over to the A&P. I was about 9 years old, and go up to people and say, "Can I carry your groceries home for you?" and put them in the wagon, and they would give us a quarter.
So he was meant to be in food work/crime.
So how long after you got to prison did you start, getting into like cooking and everything? I know food is really important when one is in prison. So I imagine at first you were just having crappy food and wanted to move on up, right?
Well, my first year in prison, I was in the penitentiary, and I was working on the service line. One of the gangsters had got me a job on the service line in exchange for my dessert. And then I moved into the kosher kitchen for a year. And then after that, I was transferred to the camp where I became the chef for approximately 100 inmates. And of course, in camp, we had visitation from outside people all the time, and they were smuggling in all kinds of stuff. At one time, I was also the camp driver, town driver, and I was able to get money from the inmates and go shopping for them in the grocery stores and salamerias in town. And so we had a crew that we cooked for, about 7 or 8 guys, and the stuff that was smuggled in by their visitors.
So when you would get money to go out and shopping and everything, that was authorized by the guards then that let you go in, then come back in, go back out?
I was authorized to take a car. I wasn't authorized to go shopping. So I would have a let's say a trip to the microwave place to get some microwaves fixed, and on the way back I'd stop in Salameria and pick up our steaks and salamis and bread and whatever.
We do have one story where I don't know if you've made it there yet, Andrew, but it's called Puss in Boots Buffet. And they have a little extra time. And again, kind of an unbelievable story. You're like, what are you talking about? You're an inmate in jail. How did you stop at the strip club? But read the book, you'll understand. And they got to pig out on like a really greasy, yummy strip club buffet. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that food in prison is actually pretty healthy. It's kind of the basics of your food groups, and so they got to chow down on pigs in a blanket and spare ribs and chicken wings. So taking the car for him was something really special. And we also have a chapter called Truck a Stop, where he goes and picks up the foods for the kosher population at Otisville. And gets stopped by a guard who he doesn't have a manifesto, makes him like unpack the whole truck and ends up stealing the kosher donuts. So I mean, these are just somebody had to put this down. That's all.
So would you say your stint in prison then was pretty, I guess, more enjoyable than some guys being locked down like 24/7 and just felt like you could
much easier. Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, in the camp, you could go out 24 hours a day. You could walk outside. We had our own gym. There was a circumference that you couldn't step outside of, but other than that, you were free to smoke and drink and do whatever you wanted at 24 hours a day.
Well, not drink.
Not drink.
He means drink coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. There were two things they were crazy about in prison. One was pornography, and the other one was booze. And as long as you didn't violate that, you were fine. And if you did violate that, you generally would get shipped back to the penitentiary.
And I'd be remiss in not mentioning, that we have a chapter called The Hunger Game. And there was a guard named Raj, and he would come down from the prison atop the hill and bring Phil pornos VHSs, and Phil would make him his best version of tikka masala. And we talk about it in the book. So, we didn't have all the ingredients, but some of the pizza flakes from the night before were the spices and things like that. So, we believe it or not, have managed to take all kinds of different subjects and tie them into his food experience there. So
there was a little little paragraph or a little story in the book that I found pretty interesting, and it was when you first got to prison. I believe you had said it was an assassin of sorts that kept trying to give you a junk food goodie bag, and you kept refusing it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was probably one of the most interesting stories in the book.
Yeah, this guy comes over to me while I'm in prison when I first got there, and he says to me, "Do you need anything?" And I don't know the guy, and I don't want to be indebted to him. And, I need everything, but I don't want to tell him that. And then he comes over afterwards and he's got a bag of stuff, and it's sneakers, because the shoes they give you, you can't wear. He's got tuna, he's got ice cream, he's got all kinds of goodies. And he gives it to me. And, first I'm a little reluctant to take it from him. But I sense he's Italian, so I feel a little more comfortable with that. And then I says, what do I owe you for this? And he says, you don't owe me anything. Just pass it on. I said, I will, I promise. I later found out he was on trial. He hadn't been convicted yet, but he was a hitman. He was an assassin for one of the families. And he had like 20 murders.
But he was super nice.
Super nice guy.
A lovely little assassin, and we call him the killer little shrimp because he was so short.
Yeah, tiny guy.
Yeah, a lot of the Italian gangsters that I've met seem to be pretty nice guys. Like I met Tony Montana actually in Las Vegas, and he was the sweetest old man you'll ever meet, with this cute little dog, and his freezer was full of chicken, and you would never think he was he was part of the Chicago outfit, so he's part of the mob, but his nicest guy you'd ever meet, and you would never suspect him of being this, violent gangster. Is just loves his cute little dog to death.
Yeah, I watch Mike Francese. He's a YouTuber, and I know of him and I know about him. And you're right. You never think this was a dangerous guy, but he's a terrible guy, terribly dangerous.
What were your three favorite dishes to cook in prison for your friends and the guards and whoever?
Oh well, very best was sausages with broccoli rabe.
For Milo.
For Milo, which you made like a sauce, and then you put over pasta, and I loved it. And then
But Milo requested that,
yeah,
right? That was like his favorite from Phil. He would.
Yeah.
Milo was a big gangster, and he would request that from Phil. We have the recipe in the book.
Right, Milo was one of the guys who would give me cash to go shopping. And then we've made a lot of eggplant parmesan. Everybody in the group liked that, and of course filet mignon. We used to get that.
Were there ever?
They had we have a story where some of the lawyers of the gangsters come and drop off these filet mignons, and then Louis, the kitchen cop who hates Phil and hates everybody, little Louis, makes them cut it up into for the entire
100 people for pepper steaks.
Yeah, makes them cut up these special filet mignons as pepper steak for the general inmates instead of just for him and his crew. And it was like, knife in your heart.
Was there ever any type of prison politics when it came to working in the kitchen with whether it's the Italians or anybody else that was back there?
Yeah, actually, it was the Italian prison cop that got me my job in the kosher kitchen. And then when I transferred to the camp, he also came to the camp. And so he was the camp overcook for like 6 months maybe. And they would rotate. They would come back like a year later and then be the same. And he was sort of a good guy. He watched out for me all the time. He'd catch me, taking stuff out of the kitchen that I wasn't supposed to be taking, and he'd just put it back. I remember one time I had a group of peppers in cellophane wrapped around my neck, and he says, "Is that what you call your Colombian necktie?" So, nah, it's just some peppers I want to get out.
And also he cooked for the guards too, as well as the inmates. And so when they would collect contraband, and tell me if I've got this right, if they would collect contraband on the surface, they would take his contraband from, I like to call it his pantry, but it was really his prison locker, and then give it back to him on the sly, because they know that he was gonna use it to make their own meals. And make their meals better. So super political, right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times I would have to go back to one of the guards and say, "Hey, that salami you took out of my locker this
for your
morning.
Dinner.
I need that to make your dinner tonight." And sure, go ahead. And the other thing is, they would let me into the kitchen at any time. I could go into the kitchen 2:00 in the morning and say I needed cook something, or I was in the middle of doing something and I didn't finish, and they'd let me in.
So you basically had access around the clock, even if you were hungry or had the munchies or whatever, you could just go and eat.
Go in the kitchen, cook something up.
We have a story about the it's called the Obese Eight, where some ladies of the night crawl through the window of the prison camp and come and party with him and the black crew. And Phil is like sort of sent to the kitchen in the middle of the night to go round up some snacks for the ladies. he had yes, access.
Did you ever have any guys wanting you to like smuggle in drugs in any of the food or anything when you would come back in?
No.
No, nobody ever asked you to do that?
Nobody ever tried to smuggle drugs into the camp.
We do have it in the book, though, that some contraband, some fresh squeezed orange juice was smuggled in a cottage cheese container inside the salad bar. So, not drugs, but pretty hot on the prison market, fresh squeezed orange juice.
Two of my friends in the prison used to work in the sanitation place where everything was recycled, and visitors would drop drugs in the toilet, and they would fish it out and resell it. But I wasn't involved with that.
And like in the book, the recipe that goes with that story is dirty rice with chickpeas. So, we have fun with it. They're all workable recipes, but that's an example. We chose dirty rice for that story.
So a lot of these recipes in the book, are those a lot that you used in prison that you would cook for the guys and guards like a lot of the time with?
No, the recipes are tongue in cheek. They relate to the stories, but they're not recipes that I cook for the inmates, other than the broccoli rabe for Milo.
What year were you released from prison?
2001.
Kind of a life-changing year, world-changing year.
Yeah, I bet 9/11 happened that year, huh?
Right.
What was the hardest thing for you to adjust to back into society after being released from prison?
Being with people, when you're with the inmates, you're very guarded all the time. You're guarded about what you say, who you're talking to, and you have to get back to being open with people. And you have to realize, even in these days, a coffee server is now a barista. Things have changed. Water comes in a bottle. It's hard to believe, and you've got to get used to that. That's the hardest thing to change.
Did you see yourself starting to miss the guys in there that, cooking for them and having them eat your food and everything, and missing the stories and talking to them all the time? And
yeah, I missed the guys I made friends with, definitely. But, I was on supervised release when I came out. So for 5 years, I couldn't get in touch with any of them.
do you talk to any of them to this day?
Just one.
Where can people purchase this book and find you two on social media?
We can, here's our book. You can just look on Amazon for Confessions of a Prison Cook, A Fusion of Food and Crime. You can also download 6 free chapters. Amazon offers that. And we have a website that's kind of cool. It's foodandcrime.com, FOODANDCRIME. And it's kind of a special food and crime search engine. And if you put in a food, we will spit out the related crime. So it's kind of like a fun game. So if you put in, chocolate pudding, we will tell you some chocolate pudding related crimes. So we kind of have that fun aspect of it. And we also have over 1,000 videos on our YouTube channel, which is at A Fusion of Food Crime. So A Fusion of Food Crime. And 30 different categories of breaking down food and crime, war food and crime stories, TV food and crime, special category for pizza, because that definitely seems to always stand out as the ultimate food and crime story. And I have to say, an in-proportionate amount of stories come out of Florida. I can't explain it. I just know that 2 out of 3 crazy food stories come out of the state of Florida. So,
It's in the water.
it's in the water. And so, yeah, but we would be so thrilled to have people read it. We have food and crime, little cartoons from the New Yorker and other places to open the chapters. So we make it, here's one. And he says, the prison food was so bad, the inmates decided to smuggle in cordon bleu chef. So, yeah, and each of the stories has a true crime bite at the end. So the story Phil was telling you about the people at the sanitation, and I told you was dirty rice with chickpeas. The news pairing is an ice cream shop in Tokyo has become famous for its poop ice cream, a load of soft swirled chocolate served in a toilet themed container. So if Phil's stories aren't enough, we have real true crime bites as well. And finally, the end of the book is things like the Titanic and Alcatraz and all kinds of historic food and crime. So we hope your readers and viewers love it. We spent 10 years writing it, and we're so grateful, Andrew, that you had us on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. And if there's anything you guys like to add, before we wrap this up, feel free to do so.
Okay, I mean, I think we're good. We, are planning on doing a lot of promotions around the country. We're thinking about a food and crime food truck where we sell the book and actually have some of the servers dressed up like characters in the book. We're hoping to sell it to TV, so it's very character driven. There's Joey, the hitman roommate of Phil's, that uses like mayonnaise and oil from the kitchen to groom his nails and his hair. He's like a vain hitman. And we have, of course, our one-legged assistant cook, Bobby, and some guards that are really pretty wild too. So we're gonna have some look for us, around the country with our food truck and our characters. We're hoping to do Good Morning America and big shows like that. And we're going to play the game where viewers will try to stump us at Food and Crime and then win a book if they stump us. So as you can see, I stay awake at night wondering what foods I'm missing. So, but yeah, it's been a labor of love, and it is a very saucy and salty tale indeed.